let's go ahead and get this out of the way because I think I know where you stand, but I'm not 100% sure. Do you like neutral site games?
No. I used to, but I don't anymore. I think a bowl game is where the neutral site game is supposed to be. That's the point of a bowl game. Now, I said, and I talked about it a couple of days ago, I don't mind a neutral site game if it's just to open the season. Look, I would be okay with a neutral site game if teams play 2 Power 5 teams in non-conference play per year. But when you only play 1, I like the home and home a lot better.
Yeah, but by the same token, you don't want to go to well, you kind of do. I think it would help Tennessee in recruiting because they're not going to. Yeah.
Tennessee did not want to play Virginia. Let's be fair. This was a desperation addition. They couldn't get another Power 5 team because Oklahoma, the SEC told them they had to pull Oklahoma. So when people rail against Tennessee for running from competition, they didn't have a choice. They made the deal with Oklahoma not knowing what was going to happen.
No, but I'll say this. It's time to run from competition because you can make a 12-team playoff. I mean, it's not fair to the fans to have to go out there and watch 3 Austin Peays a year, but I got no problem with it because you still make the playoff. And at the end of the day, if you're in the playoff, you got a chance to win a championship, and you're not going to look back at a game in September and it's Austin Peay and think, well, that game was kind of boring. The tailgate was nice, but the game got out of hand and we left at halftime, but we won a national title. I mean, nobody's going to say that. So now I'm all for running from the competition. I said the exact opposite a while back, but listen, if you want to play a tough schedule and toughen up your team, I think there's an argument for that. If you want to play an easier schedule to make sure you're in the playoff, I think there's an argument for that. I think both have merit, and I don't think it's a clear-cut one side or the other is the correct decision to make. So this isn't the first time that Tennessee has opened the season versus an ACC team in a neutral site. It happened before 2017 Georgia Tech. So what do you recall about that game? What similarities are there, Caleb? Because Tennessee is facing a team that they are better than, even though that wasn't the best of times for Tennessee. Their roster should have been significantly better than the Yellow Jackets. How does this compare and contrast to the last time Tennessee opened a season versus an ACC team at a neutral site?
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because it's painful memories for Tennessee fans. They did beat Georgia Tech, but they won 42-41 in double overtime. And Dave, honestly, one of the luckiest wins they ever had in the history of the program. They were moving on from the Josh Dobbs era. They had underachieved the year before, not winning the East. And then Butch Jones went into his cliche mode saying, it's okay we didn't win the East because our players are champions of life. And then their recruiting suffered. And Butch Jones said, we're not looking for 5-star players. We want 5-star hearts. Yeah, and then at SEC Media Days, heading into that year, he said, I don't look at last year as a disappointment. And it's like, it was a disappointment last year. You didn't win the East, and you were a top 10 team to start the year. You're moving on from Josh Dobbs. It was Quentin Dormady, Jared Garantano. He made the move to start Quentin Dormady. Dormady actually played okay. Marquez Callaway played okay. John Kelly played okay. Tennessee had all offseason to prepare for the triple option and couldn't figure out how to stop it. The only reason Georgia Tech lost that game, they were up 28-21 with a couple of minutes left to go in the game. They had just gotten a first down to secure the deal, and their running back didn't go down, and Rashawn Golden forced a fumble, and Tennessee recovered and then had a game-tying drive. And then in the second overtime, Georgia Tech went for the win after scoring a touchdown. Darrell Taylor sold out to the right, and in the only stop Tennessee made all day on the triple option was on that play where he sold out to the right, and they got the stop. Very similar, Dave, to 2006 Air Force when they went for 2 in the win. And I'm sure you remember Xavier Mitchell sold out to the left, if I remember. And it was like if Air Force had gone the other way, they would have won that game. But
let me ask you this. Is a Nashville game really a neutral site game? And that question was on the message board. Is it really a neutral site game, Caleb?
No, Tennessee. But
I mean, I know they'll have the fans there, but it's not going to be as loud. Listen, if you're playing a significant team, a really good team, let's say Ohio State. Yes, I mean, I've been to Nissan Stadium when it was called something else, but you're not going to have the crowd noise be a factor. It's more open. I'm sure you've been there too as well, Caleb, than Neyland, which is straight up, closed off, and loud. But the flip side is, and I wonder where you'll go here, you do get a little more recruiting exposure in Nashville, which is a growing town. We could argue whether or not it's a good recruiting town for Tennessee. But A, is this even a neutral site game? B, is it good for recruiting to have a game in Nashville once every couple of years? Or does it matter?
So I'm going to laugh on this. Before I get to that, because we were talking about the Georgia Tech game, they played Georgia Tech in in Atlanta that year, but it was considered a neutral site game, even though Georgia Tech, their home is in Atlanta, but it was a home game for Tennessee because they had 3/4 of the crowd in that game. So no, it's not a neutral site game. It's a home game for Tennessee. I think they wrote a pretty big check to Virginia to get that to be a neutral site game in Nashville, if I'm not mistaken. Two, I would ask you this actually more than you would ask. I would have you ask me, because does playing in a fertile recruiting ground like once every 2 or 3 years matter anymore like it used to, given the exposure on national television or region or online or anything like that? Is that like really a thing? Do kids really think like, I saw this team play in Nashville one time and now I don't want to go play for them?
I mean, listen, you have to go out there and play really well. And you also have to, I think you would want to schedule an opponent that you're definitely going to beat. The worst thing in the world for recruiting in Nashville, it would be if Tennessee showed up, laid an egg and lost, or, just won 17-16 or something goofy like that. I mean, that's worst case scenario, right? So you open yourself up to that possibility if Virginia plays the game of their life. But does a kid say, I saw this team in my hometown, so I'm going to go there? Probably not. I don't know that makes a big difference. I do think, though. I mean,
it used to, but not anymore.
Yeah, and I do think, though, that you'll see a ton of people. You'll see a ton of promotion. If we got anybody in Nashville, I'm curious. A great point by Travis. West Tennessee people can see the Vols play closer and easier to home. But I ask you this, is there anybody in Nashville, are there billboards about the game, which can help in recruiting? Tennessee's in your face as you drive down the road and your mom's taking you to school and you're 16 or 17. Is there extra promo? And maybe we'll get Brent Doherty, our friend, on, or Ron Slay, our friend, on later in the week. Is there a lot of promo that goes on in Nashville, the city, because the game is there? And I'm talking about pre-game hype that brings people in. Let me ask you this question. If you were to set up, I tell you, Caleb Calhoun, you're the athletic director. You have to set up one neutral site game per year. So you got to start that next year. What's it going to be? You give me the perfect one in terms of recruiting against a team that's good enough that people are going to want to watch, but you're not going to accidentally spit the bid on. I give you one team, one site, Caleb. What is it?
Well, now that they don't run the triple option and Tennessee has a good coach, it's Georgia Tech in Atlanta. And I'll tell you exactly why it's Georgia Tech in Atlanta. Atlanta's the best recruiting ground. You're going to beat Georgia Tech. But here's the big thing. And I know this growing up in Memphis because this helped Tennessee recruit Memphis back in the day. Memphis was the one football program that could get home and homes with bigger schools. And the reason is, like, an Arkansas or a Tennessee or an Ole Miss, Dave, you know this, they play Memphis in Memphis. They're going to have more fans at that game than Memphis will. And
True.
So you can, if you're recruiting Memphis, you can invite local kids to that game, have it not count as an official visit, but it's like a home game for your team. And I think if Tennessee plays Georgia Tech, they're recruiting some Atlanta kids. They could honestly invite kids to that game, not be an official visit, and the place is loaded with Tennessee fans at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I think that's the selling point that, and I mean, again, I'd willingly play Georgia Tech at their home field every year. Now, I'd do it at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, honestly, but you play it at Georgia Tech, Dave, you and I know it's going to be more Tennessee fans than Georgia Tech fans there every time.
I'm going to give you one that's the all-time best, and you can never top it if you live to be 120 years old. You ready?
Ready.
It's when Lane Kiffin was at FAU, and you play in Miami, neutral site game, and you play Lane Kiffin. You get a ton of hype from that. Kiffin would have made the administration take that game, and you have all kinds of exposure in South Florida. beat that.
Will your fans fill the stadium in South? Will Tennessee fans make the travel?
Oh heck yeah! This is the end of the summer. You go to Miami to kick off the year, and Miami's a pretty cool place this time of year. That would have been the absolute best one.
I got a better idea.
And you're definitely going to win because your talent's so much better than they had at FAU.
Well, that's where I'm going. How about just play Miami there? Miami's not a good program anymore. You're definitely going to beat Miami now, and you know you're going to have more fans in Miami. You covered that Miami game in 2003, and their fans. I felt like there were almost as many Tennessee fans at that game in Miami as Miami fans.
There were a lot of Miami fans at the time because it was basically in the middle of it's a weird stadium in the middle of like a big neighborhood. It's very odd. So there's tailgating literally in the front yards of people's homes. It's very bizarre. So there was a strong Miami contingent. Nowadays they play at the Hard Rock Casino. By the way, worst casino ever. Do not go there. Do not support the Hard Rock Casino. They don't give free drinks and they don't have dice tables. You have to pay for your Diet Coke. Okay, so don't go there. But nowadays their support's very bad because it's 45 minutes from campus. So that's a fine one. I'll roll with that. Play Miami, call it a neutral site game. They feel good about themselves, but you get exposure in South Florida. You're probably going to beat them. And
fans nowadays.
Yeah. And the Orange Bowl, I guess I'll push back a little bit on Tennessee dominating the Orange Bowl back in, was that 2001?
2003 when they were in Miami. No, I didn't see the fans dominated. I just felt that they were competitive with Miami when Miami was at their heyday, at their peak. And the Tennessee fans were competitive.
It was probably 70-30, 60-40 Miami fans, which isn't bad on the road. It means that your offense is never going to get thrown off by crowd noise if you're anywhere close to 50-50, and it was at least comparable. But no, I love that. I think that's a great idea. But as a whole, I'm totally against neutral site games, and I can't tell you that there's another neutral site game that I can even think of.
Would you consider Tulane and New Orleans, or is LSU getting those kids no matter what?
I think LSU gets those kids no matter what. So the two that, and I think you came up with both of them, Miami at the Hard Rock Casino Stadium, whatever it's called, I would play that game, call it a neutral site game. And if you want to, even though it would be a home game for Miami, and not worry about the return trip, because that'd be the Miami hang up. They wouldn't want to make the return trip where they are as a program. So call it a neutral site game. Yeah, that's fine. Go play down there, get the exposure and recruiting. And then the other one would be Georgia Tech in Atlanta. The next one would be somebody in Nashville. But that to me is like a big fall off because of what we've said. We talked about it. You're going to get plenty of exposure in Nashville no matter what.
And I think, I'm just going to be honest, I think Birmingham and Memphis are better spots than Nashville because Nashville, Tennessee has a lock on Nashville kids already. Like, Dave, let's be honest. If Tennessee wants a Nashville kid, they get a Nashville kid. That's just how it goes, particularly when they're rolling. Memphis and Birmingham are smaller cities, but you got to compete a little. Or even Jackson. I mean, look, we talk about recruiting all the time. We always forget this. Mississippi's a really underrated state for football recruiting. I think they're number one in NFL players per capita. They're just not a big state. Yep. And I mean, could you imagine, like, how about go play Southern Miss in Jackson and just fill up the stadium there?
I don't hate that. I might like that more than Nashville.
Yeah, I think Jackson, Birmingham, and Memphis are better spots than Nashville because Tennessee has a lock on Nashville already, whereas they don't have a lock on Memphis, Jackson, or Birmingham.
Would a neutral site in Memphis be better than Nashville, all things being equal?
I think so. Only
huge dump though.
Liberty Bowl sucks. It's a horrible stadium. It's a terrible stadium. It's
only
absolutely atrocious stadium.
Only time I've been late for a game because somebody couldn't unlock the gate, and I got John Adams saying, "Well, don't be late ever for a game."
And also, we talk about, you're right. Nashville gives West Tennessee people look. Having been there, Memphis literally got home and homes with people because they knew that that would sell their football program. So, yeah, I think that the home and you know this, Dave. Calipari killed the series with Tennessee in basketball because he was tired of Tennessee playing in the FedEx Forum every other year and filling up the stadium with Tennessee fans, and that was going to make an impact recruiting Memphis kids. And then Josh Pastner did the same thing. And
well, I don't have a problem with
North Carolina
Memphis
and Charlotte.
except for the
What about
Liberty
that
Bowl.
one?
I'm kind of okay with that. I just don't think that. Yeah, I would be okay with that. At the Panthers Stadium. Yeah, I would be okay with that. I think that's in the top 5. I think that's okay.